Well, hello again. Normally at this time of the year, as you approach the end of term, you're probably looking forward to do one of your school nativity plays. It's always fun, isn't it, dressing up? I remember when I was little being desperate to play the part of an angel, and I never got to be an angel, which I was always quite disappointed about. I always think that's a really nice role to have. You're probably at this stage practicing your songs in the hall, and your parents would be getting excited about coming to see you, maybe even aunts and uncles and granny and granddad. It's a real shame that it's not possible to have those sorts of performances this year. And so instead, at the education team, we're going to ask you to be almost like the mums and dads this time round. We're going to bring the nativity to you this year. And we've asked a number of schools from all over the Portsmouth and Winchester Diocese to film themselves doing parts of the nativity story. And we've put all of that together in a very special performance for you. So sit back and relax and enjoy this performance. There will be parts of the performance that you're about to see where you'll be asked to take part, and not singing this time, unfortunately, because we can't do that because of COVID-19. But there will be things that you are asked to do. It might be lighting the candle that's in front of you. It might be taking part in a dance, or listening to a song, or having some time for reflection. So it's an interactive performance of the Nativity this year. Relax and enjoy it, and we really hope that the children taking part look out for themselves as we listen to that great story again.
God rest ye merry, gentle.
Long ago, a young girl named Mary lived in the town of Nazareth. She was engaged to be married to a man called Joseph. One day, God sent the angel Gabriel to talk to Mary. At first she was scared, but Gabriel said, "Do not be frightened. You have been chosen by God to have a baby called Jesus. He will be God's son."
I've been asked to speak to you today about the day I was asked to deliver the most important message that was ever given in the history of the world. Many years ago, I was summoned by God to be briefed on a new mission. He told me, "Gabriel, you have the most delicate assignment. I'm sending my son to save the earth. To do this, he must become a human himself. Your mission is to announce this plan to the young woman I have chosen to be his mother. Her name is Mary, and she lives in a village of Nazareth, in Galilee." Well, he went on to describe my role and what I was to say. He finished by saying, "Gabriel, please be gentle." I arrived one spring morning as Mary was climbing the path from the well, and came to where I was sitting on a large stone. When I first saw her, I thought how young she looked. As she approached, I stood, dressed as I always dress, long white robe, golden sash. "Hello, Mary," I began. "Well," she just gasped. All the colour drained from her face. I told her to sit. She carefully removed the full water jug from her head, set it down, then eased herself onto the far end of the rock. "Don't be afraid, Mary," I said. "God has a special job for you. You will soon have a son who will become a great man. He will be called Son of God, and he will come to save the world." I paused. The message shocked me. I couldn't imagine the impact it must have had on her. She was scared, but God had given me one sentence to say at this point. "Mary, nothing is impossible with God," I said. "Nothing." She was quite a moment longer, lost in her thoughts. Then she looked up at me and said, "Here I am. I am the Lord's servant. Let what you have said come to pass." She stood up as she began to lift the heavy water jug to her shoulder and then hoist it up to her head. I reached up to help, but she shook her head and lifted it up herself. As she made her way up the path to the village, her steps were happy, almost a spring to them. And that is how I met Mary.
Soon, it was nearly time for Mary to have her baby, but Mary and Joseph needed to make the long and difficult journey to Bethlehem to pay their taxes. Mary rode on a donkey and Joseph walked beside her.
Of course I was scared out of life at first. Who wouldn't have been? But after the angel left, I got this funny, peaceful feeling, and despite everything, that's never really gone away. Not that I knew how it was going to turn out, mind. I've no idea. I mean, why me? I was nothing special or anything. I didn't deserve it more than anyone else. I didn't deserve it at all. As it was, it wasn't easy in the village, I can tell you. All those disapproving looks they thought I didn't see. All that whispering. Well, there's nothing I can do about that now. I'm just sorry for them that they never knew who he really was. Never knew him. That's the greatest loss any of us could ever have. And I'm not saying that just because I held him in my arms first. Saw those bright, all-knowing eyes staring out at me before anyone else did. He was precious to me, but then any mother would say that the same. But that isn't the whole story. That's what made him, knowing him so special, was that I could tell he really understood me, and not just me neither, right from the start. I truly think he knew me, knows me better than I know myself. I could read it in his eyes. Way before he could walk or talk. I know. It doesn't seem to make any sense, but that's the way it was.
Bethlehem was crowded, dirty and noisy. Mary and Joseph needed a place to stay, but at every inn the story was the same: no room. Poor Mary was very tired. At last a kindly innkeeper showed them the stable where he kept his animals. They were welcome to stay there, he said.
Why did this happen to me? Ask anybody in town. They'll tell you I'm a pretty good person. I work hard, running my family's carpentry business. I got engaged to a nice girl from a nice family. Everything was going great until one incredible moment that changed our lives, and everybody else's forever. I came home one day to find Mary sitting on the bed, looking different. Then she told me this unbelievable story about an angel, that she was going to have a son, and that we were part of God's great plan. I would have thought she'd gone crazy, but it sounded like even she was having a hard time believing what she was telling me. It was like the truth, but it was so amazing she could barely get it out. To be perfectly honest, I found it rather difficult to believe. I mean, even if God had such a plan, he certainly wouldn't have picked us to help carry it out. We're just ordinary people from an ordinary town with ordinary lives. I spent the next few days trying to take it in when one night the angel came and spoke to me too. I thought now I was definitely going crazy, but the angel said everything Mary had told me was true, that this baby was the true Son of God and that we had been chosen to be responsible for his care. Now don't get me wrong, I'm a religious man. I believe all the promises God made to our people will be fulfilled one day. I just didn't expect it to look like this. No one I've told will believe me about this. If God was going to do these things in such a weird way, don't you think he would have let everyone else know? Wouldn't God have at least told the religious leaders? They're the ones who are supposed to know what God's thinking. But instead it's up to me, a simple carpenter, and my new wife to take care of this baby as if he were my son. I have no idea what will happen to this boy, but deep down inside, somehow I know everything will be alright. God will make it all work out.
Mary gently laid her baby in a manger, which usually held the animal's food. Mary and Joseph watched over Jesus, and all the animals in the stable gathered around them. That same night, on a hillside overlooking Bethlehem, shepherds were watching over their sheep. Suddenly, they saw a bright light in the sky, and an angel sent by God appeared, bathed in a golden glow. The shepherds shook with fear. "Do not be afraid," said the angel. "I bring you great news. The Son of God has been born. You will find the baby lying in a manger in Bethlehem." Then the sky was filled with angels singing. Once the angels had left, the shepherds set off to Bethlehem to find the baby.
It was a cold night. It was a starry night. The coldest night of the year, they said. It was the kind of night where you feel the chill deep down in your bones, and you couldn't stop shivering even if you wanted to. On nights like these, I hate being a shepherd. I mean, it's bad enough that they pay us next to nothing and that we have to stay up all night fighting off wolves. But the part that really gets me is how people look down on us. I know we smell bad being with sheep all the time, but some people put their hands on their money bag when they see us because they're afraid we'll rob them. I've never hurt anybody in my life. Anyway, like I said, it was the coldest night of the year. We were sitting around the fire trying to keep warm, but it wasn't working. It was late and I started to doze off. That's when it happened. This bright light came from out of nowhere and I heard someone shouting something. I figured someone was using some kind of trick to be able to steal our sheep. I squinted and saw an angel and he was saying, "Don't be afraid, I have good news." I was so scared I could not move. Anyway, the angel tells us that in a town a new king had been born and that we should go see him. He said that a star would show us the way. All of a sudden, the light disappeared. I thought maybe I was seeing things, but everyone else saw it too. And after the spots went away from our eyes, there it was, a star I'd never seen in the sky, shining as bright as the moon. We headed off, not knowing why. It didn't make any sense. After all, why would a bunch of dirty shepherds be allowed to see a king? Even regular people didn't want to be around us. Why should a new king be any different?
Far away in the east, 3 wise men spotted a new star shining high in the sky. These men studied the stars, and they knew that this one was special. It meant that a great new ruler had been born. They decided to go and look for him. They prepared gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Then, bright light of the new star in the sky guided the wise men on their journey.
God had appeared to us who'd been silent. We knew because we had been listening. In a sense, my job was to listen. People who talk a lot, you don't call them wise, do you? A really wise person listens and watches. In my position, I look for signs everywhere. A star, for example. I can look at a star and watch and wait and see what it is trying to tell me. I once read about a star that would announce the birth of a new king. And then one day, there it was, a star unlike any star I'd ever seen before. It was magnificent, shining brightly in the night sky, ploughing through hundreds of scrolls and charts. We saw this star. That was the one that we had been waiting for. We decided to follow it as it moved across the sky, travelling by night and sleeping by day. It seems to have disappeared near Jerusalem. There were a few of us, and yes, we actually followed a star. It was so bizarre. This star led us. It moved, and we followed. And then it stopped, shining down over a tiny stable. Our journey ended not at a palace fit for a king, but a cowshed. This was it. We gathered our thoughts, our gifts, and did what we could to contain our emotions. And behind those doors, we found a new king. We knelt down that night. Yes, we kneeled before the baby boy, and each of us laid gifts at his feet and listened to the cries of the Son of God.
My baby boy was wonderful. He was the most special gift anyone could have ever been given. I will never forget the day when the angel visited me at the well and told me I was going to have such a special baby. But I knew from the beginning that this perfect baby boy was never going to be just mine. He was born for every single person in the world, and more than 2,000 years later, it is the same. My son went on to live the most amazing life, showing people how to love one another. So if you see someone needing help or needing a friend, think about what he taught us to do, to love and to care for one another. After all, remember what Gabriel said, nothing will be impossible with God.
It was a night of joy and celebration. The newborn baby Jesus lay sleeping in the manger. Mary and Joseph watched over him, and animals gathered close by. The shepherds knelt down and worshipped baby Jesus, and the wise men arrived on camels bearing gifts. All the while, the bright new star twinkled in the sky.